Hey everyone, welcome to the teams. It's me, Pom, and I'm joined as always by the ever-essent Leg Dog. How you doing, my friend?
Oh, mate, I'm excited to be here with you. I think it's the highlight of my football week these days, to be honest with you. So, oh wow, it looks like the teams are already dropped. Bomb. So we might be able to get straight into it. I see Essendon's team. I haven't seen our
Here
team
we are,
quite
Carlton's team. So our team straight away. Hey, this never happens.
Yet.
This
Whoa.
never happens, but out. No surprise, Paddy Dow, Lockie O'Brien, Jack Silvani and Zach Fisher. Ed Kerno, Jack Martin and Pitnet are in. So that means that our team will be Chincotta, Wheatering, Boyd, Sard, McGovern, Kemp, Walsh, Cripps, Akers, Jack Martin, Charlie Kerno, Sam Doherty, Matty Owes, Harry Mackay, Tom de Koning, Pitnet, Chera, Ed Kerno, with the bench being Matt Kennedy, Cottrell, Lewis Young, and Motlop, with your sub being one of Dow, Silvani, Cowan, or Fogarty. So while I update the bottom sheet, chat and Leg Dog, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, poor Paddy Dow. It's just like they tease him. Nah, you know what? You're back. You know what? We need some youth in the team. We need some speed. Ed Kerner, you're back in. Look, Pito, I think I'm half expecting some late out shenanigans, but I'm glad to see Pito's back in the side against who have they got? They've got Sam Draper and maybe Peter Wright helps out. He's back for us.
Yeah,
And
Peter
he's
Wright's
their only
in.
inclusion.
They've dropped Phillips.
Yeah, so Phillips comes out of that side. Dylan Shields out as well. So they'll use, you'd think, Peter Wright up forward, Sam Draper around the ground. So I like that matchup for Pito. I like, obviously, everyone who watches this show knows that I'm a Jack Martin believer. I like seeing him in the team. Please, dear God, let's use him properly and allow him to, push up the ground a bit, allow him to maybe even see some centre bounce attendances. I know that might be crazy. I'd love to see it. But, Silvani, O'Brien and Fisher, I'm probably not surprised by. And Paddy Dow, just, Pom, what does he have to do? I thought he actually gave us something as the sub. Like, just let him play one game, please.
I mean, I want to pretend to be surprised. So for the benefit of the chat, I'll pretend to be surprised. Am I not really? I don't understand. Like, I've seen so many people saying you've got to tag Merritt. Dear, because who's Merritt getting the ball out to? Like, the Merritt Parish combination works really well. Parish isn't there. So you're dealing with Heppel and Martin. I would have thought honestly, if you're tagging Merritt when last year they saw how you negate players like Merritt, it's quite simple. That's what I don't understand about Voss's system at the moment. I don't understand why this tag thing's coming back when last year he was quite bullish on how most of the top teams play, and that's just outworking the midfield. And looking at their midfield and our midfield, Voss should feel like we can outwork it. And I think Dow's stiff. Hopefully Dow is sub. But I watched Ed Kerner with the VFL, and honestly, it was banter town, to be honest.
Yeah, like, I'm with you. We discussed this for the Collingwood game as well around do you tag Nick Dacos? And my whole thing is if you're bringing a player in and using one of your 22/23 spots purely to negate someone, I think you're going to lose the game. And I think, like, it worries me that you're essentially burning one spot in the starting team just so Ed Kerno could come in and look, historically he's been good at negating players, but I don't think that's a winning strategy. And they can just send, I mean, it's probably what we want them to do is send Zach Merritt maybe forward a bit more to rest, but he's had games this year. Like last week, he kicked 2 goals in the first quarter or something like that. Like he's capable of damaging us. I don't love that selection. I'm going to say that every single week of the show this year, Pom. I have done so far that I love Ed Kerno. I don't think he should be in the team. I'm just going to keep saying it. Let's talk about the sub, because normally we save that to the end, but you mentioned Paddy Dow. Has to be Paddy Dow again, doesn't it? It has to be.
Yeah. Logic would say, I mean, it has to be Dow. But
It has to be. Let's work through it. Silvani, he's probably the most flexible player there, but I don't think he's an impact player.
I'm gonna give a spoiler. It's Jack Silvani.
No, it has to be Paddy Dow.
No, do you know why it's him? And just bear with me. It's 16 flags. They've got Lance Whitnell and Dustin Fletcher. They're parading the 16 flags pre-game. And Jack Silvani is the son and grandson of the surgeon and Steve Silvani, who happens to be a big part of them 16 flags. So, I mean, it has to be Dow, but that's when you're thinking
it's going to be Silvani. Yeah. You're right. You're absolutely right.
It better not be Jack. I'll just say, but if we think about it logically, right? I mean, we're looking at it like just as a singular. Like Essendon have had a really good start to the year, and I think I said it in my preview. If you watch this game, and shout out to Delicious Bat Soup, I agree. Once we drew Richmond, we've both been cursed by that draw. But if I said it at the start of my preview, if you'd said at this stage now, you would have thought we would have had Essendon's record and Essendon would have had yours. Obviously, they're both in different scenarios at the moment. Essendon are playing really tight football, really well as well. They look like a cohesive side. They've had their injuries and they've seemed to negated it. Unfortunately, we haven't. This is a game where it has to turn around, doesn't it? It has to turn around.
I mean, yes, it does. But we've been in this position quite a few times over the last few years, Pom, and generally the must-win Essendon game leads to our coach being sacked. So, yes, this is the moment that it has to turn around. Will it? I really bloody hope so. I think Essendon, someone in the media, I'm not sure who it was, said it this week, that Scott has got every drop of talent out of the playing list he has, and we haven't and Voss really hasn't done that for us. And I think that's true. I think I'm going to keep saying this about quite a few teams. I think we have the better players, but they seem to be maximizing their system to their players, and they've been playing pretty well. But if you look at just the teams side by side on paper, and we've done this 10 times now, 10 or 11 times, it looks like we should win. Because you look at the names and what they do on an individual basis next to each other, and you go, yeah, we've got the better players. So, yes, I think that this is the moment that we should turn it around. But it's up to the players to do that, and it's purely a mindset thing. I've been chatting to a few people that have friends at the club this week, and the players are all really well aware of the situation. They know that the wins aren't on the board. It's upsetting them as much as it's upsetting us. We can only hope that they channel that into something positive this week.
Well said, mate. No, I couldn't agree more. I mean, for me, it's not good at the moment, but do you know what I mean? Like, you look at it at the moment, 2 weeks to the bye. I'm a firm believer that I think a bye usually comes at a bad time. Do you know what I mean? A bad time for most clubs. But if we can somehow scratch 2 wins together, I think it comes at a really good time that they get just a week out of it to work on what they do, get some momentum going into that bye to really ironclad any issues. And like you say, Essendon, not to take anything away from them, they've been playing real good sturt football. This is my game where I think what Essendon do really well is they ask the question for a long time. They ask the question for a lot longer, and that's something that we can't do at the moment. We're struggling to ask that question for long enough. The Melbourne game, I went back and watched it. If you get a chance to watch Saba's video he did, he's taken the piss out of me and Terry. It's actually quite good. It's made me laugh. But if you actually go and watch it, the amount of times Carlton get back into that game and then they concede a goal straight from centre bounce after an inside 50 that should have been marked. That's something that Essendon have sharpened up. They are real rigid to beat. And really, it is as simple as Carlton being more professional for longer. And a lot of these issues will go away. I think last week was a great example of where we are as a football club. That first 10 minutes everyone's raving about, I would say our skills were almost deplorable.
Yeah.
But the effort and intensity kind of outweighed the deplorability of the skills, and it kind of made it go missing. That's something that the boys have got to do, and I'll give the boys credit against Essendon. We've won the last 3 against them. Genuinely, even when we're shit, something happens with Essendon and us. So this is a game where they've got to kind of get up and going.
Yeah. Oh, we all remember the Luke Parks tackle, don't we? On was it Tipper? On Tipper?
Yeah.
There's always a moment that happens. The Mitch McGovern chase down tackle in the fourth quarter does its hammies, misses 17 weeks with injury. Like there's always something that happens. So I think the guys definitely do dig deeper in these games. I'm not sure. Like to be honest, Palm, I haven't put the time into the numbers that I normally do on this game. For me, this one is kind of just about emotional maturity, gut and drive. I think it's more about that than tactically trying to match up against Essendon. I think this is going to have to be a real from the gut, from the heart win for the players and the coaching staff. And then you go into hopefully the Gold Coast game with a bit of confidence because, again, Gold Coast are a team that we should beat every time, but we don't. So yeah, for me, it's like, yeah, maybe that's why they've brought Ed in because he's a mature body and he's got heart and passion, but it's strenuous at best. But I'm looking at guys like I want Walsh, I want Cripps. It's the same names we've said for a few weeks. I want Charlie and I want Harry to do their thing and maybe Jacob Weeder in defense. I just want them to finally lead by example, please, on the field. Just leave everything out there. And I know I'm rambling a bit. I know that they do leave everything out there sort of in terms of, they're not walking off the ground, not feeling like they haven't run 15 kilometers because they do. But I want the emotions on the ground. I don't want this weird PR bottled up sort of stuff that we've seen, plastic club we've seen for the last few weeks. I just want, hell, Ed Kerno, go out there and just punch someone in the head. I don't care. Just do something. Like, give me something.
It's an interesting one, but I mean, Voss has gone with what he knows. I mean, me personally, I don't think I like Jack Martin there because we're actually going to see a high half forward. We're going to see a high half forward, and I think Cunners and Jack Martin, who effectively replace out of the best 22, Jack Silvani and Zach Fisher, I think are basically their high-end models of them. It's going to be interesting to see. In my preview, we discussed Kyle Langford and his role. We've discussed it quite a bit this year about players that do play that kind of pseudo third high half forward role and the impact they have on the tolls. And genuinely, the tolls are lesser than what we've got. It's going to be interesting this because Martin's got to really... He'll be one of them players that's probably... There's only one more year after this on his contract. But there's a few players in this team who are probably playing for contracts, maybe here, maybe elsewhere. TDK was one that I discussed in my preview that we don't know if he's staying, we don't know if he's going, but either way, there is an intrinsic motivation for him to put some numbers on the board. And it's quite interesting. I thought that Lewis Young has retained his place in this side because with them dropping Phillips, it's kind of 2 rucks versus 2 rucks. May have been a reason because I enjoyed a couple of weeks ago when we had no Young and we went a bit smaller down the back. I thought it kind of forced us to play. So it's going to be interesting because I think if Carlton take risks in this game, I think they win quite comfortably.
Yeah, and that's the thing, isn't it? And we haven't taken risks much this year, and is that a coaching decision? Is it a player's not willing to do it? Because if they've been coached not to take risks, they're not going to do it tomorrow, or Sunday. But I'm with you. I think that's the key to winning. I'm slightly concerned if we're talking about this selected team about how much height we're taking to this team. Now, Essendon are a tall team as well, but having all of Wiedering, McGovern, I know Kemp's a bit smaller, Tom DeConning, Charlie Curnow, Harry Mackay, and then even Jack Martin's not as short as you want, plus Lewis Young on the bench. It's a lot of tall timber. I wonder if there might be a little bit of late out nonsense. Let's assume there's not. How do you feel with all those talls? You just touched on it before. Is there a chance we could see a Mitch McGovern swing roll? I know there's not, but let's talk about it because I want to see it.
I want to see it as well. I mean, he flirted with it. I mean, I do feel comfortable Jack Martin's there. I know he divides Carlton fans probably more than most players, but I don't think anyone out there in the world could make an argument for Jack Silvani. You just can't. I really don't. I love Jack as much as the next guy, but he's just an average footballer in all departments. And there's way too many players at the moment just treading water. I like the fact that Jack Martin can be a 10 or a 1.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I kind of like that. And I feel that position is the position that you do have a 10 or a 1. Are we too tall? Maybe. I would have liked to have seen him give Dow. I do like, when I see omitted, though, next to the names of O'Brien, Silvani and Fisher, 3 guys that I think have been really poor this year. Yeah. I do like that. I think he could have maybe gone harder. I feel Binns, this was the perfect time to bring Binns in, would have been these 2 games against Essendon and against Gold Coast, and then give him that week where you can naturally rest him and reassess the situation. I feel we've missed a trick there, but I feel like Ed Kernow's always going to rear his ugly head. It feels like it's like a break glass in front of emergencies. I'm not a fan of it. Josh, to answer your question, I do think Marchbank's the next cab off the rank. I would expect this time next week, you will probably see Cunners in the side and Marchbank, because I believe that Marchbank may be missing. Someone told me that he may miss the VFL this week because of soreness. So I think you may see Cunners, though, because I believe Cunners is in the team.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm excited. Cunners was good from what I saw.
He was involved in all of Carlton's scores in the
I'm just pulling up his numbers. Oh. Yeah, 21 disposals, 7 score involvement, 7 clearances. By all reports, he was very influential. I'm excited to see him back in the team. He's another guy, isn't he? 1 or a 10. I'm happy to see it, as like you said, omitted next to Silvani, O'Brien, and Fisher, because they're players who were essentially guaranteed games for a long time at our footy club. And while we do, on a zoomed out sort of view of things, we always talk about where's the selection integrity? Why isn't Voss making any changes? Where are the surprises? Where are the big calls? Pulling those 3 out of guaranteed games across this year actually has been a pretty big call in hindsight. Guys that were guaranteed games and were good for the team. You talked about Silvani being average. That was good when we were shit. We're shit again now, but when we were really shit, it was good to have like just an average player who would show up every week, but it's not enough anymore. So I do like that he's asking more of those guys. Whether he's getting it from his replacements is another question. But I'm with you that I like seeing omitted next to those names. I like that we're not making excuses anymore for removing players from the team, and maybe it does affect whether they're here next year. And to be honest, I don't care. I think getting a Jack Martin in, giving Pitto back into this side are 2 good steps for at least for this week.
Mate, I agree. And yeah, it's been confirmed by Carlton Marchbank will miss with soreness. So I reckon you can draw the line. I'm the opposite of you, Matthew, to be honest, with all due respect. I think Cunners is out of contract this year. Martin's out of contract end of next year. For me, if you can't get at least 8 games out of them now to the end of the season, I think you look at doing a Setterfield deal with Martin at the end of the year, and you give a fifth away, swap fifths, try and get him off the books. And I think Connors, you release him. I think, do you know what I mean? They're going to get injured. As Marchbank proves, I keep saying this about Marchbank. Every time Marchbank plays more than a half for Carlton's VFL side, he's sore. So for me, you either throw him in at the deep end and he gets injured in seniors. When he's in reserves, what's the point? Do you know what I mean? And
yeah.
To answer your question, Kaya, I'm not too sure. I would strongly disagree with anyone who says that you tag merit.
Me too.
Top sides don't. North didn't last week, and they nearly won. Do you know what I mean? And North are the kind of team that tag. There was a great article at the start of the year from Lee Matthews about the tagging's dead in today's game with the way that they all play zones. All 18 sides play a strong zone around the ground. I think top teams, that's how Carlton had success last year. We were one of two teams that laid no tags in the first 10 rounds, and incidentally we're 8-2. So I'm with it. You hear Fly. Fly doesn't like a tag.
No.
He likes a run with roll. I don't see it. To me, and I'd love to know what chat think, I would rather go, let's give him a problem. Let's fucking put Cripps there. Let's put Walsh there. Let's float Dow there. Do you know what I mean? Give Dow the minutes. Because I actually liked Ed's role in VFL because he was talking a lot. So, do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
But James, to answer your question, that was such a bad game against Geelong. Do you know what I mean? Cam Guthrie, man. Like I know we love Ed, and this is no disrespect to Ed Kerner, but this is no disrespect to Jack Silvani. If we want to be a top team, you've got to roll the dice. And I will just say this to Voss. Voss has called the players out for taking risks, which I agree with. And I think that was him saying the players aren't bold enough. When you're starting to negate their only midfielder, when you should be able to play a strong game with 18 guys on the field, which we did last year, I think you're asking them to be safe. And I think that's hiding a bit because there's no way North's midfield overran them. We should be overrunning them as well.
Yeah. Don't disagree with any of that. I'll say this to answer the question about Ed. We see this a lot. I think I've used this example before. We see this a lot in NBA where coaches, even if they've got a better rookie player, will still play the vets over them because the vets have been there. The vets know what they're doing. The vets have the reps. The coaches don't want to risk their own jobs by playing rookies. So we actually see in Americans, in NBA in particular, we see a lot of times where the GM goes, right, if you're going to keep playing Ed Kerner, I'm going to trade Ed Kerner. If he's not on the list, you can't play him. And it feels a bit like that with Vossi, where Vossi trusts Ed. He trusts that he's going to execute his role and do what he's told. So he's going to play him as long as he's available, which, again, I wouldn't be doing, especially not in a purely negating role, but that's where we're at. And I think there's a comment here that says, I don't from Christian, I don't want to tag because it means Kennedy probably has to play at halfback, and I'm with you. I don't want to see that either. I do not like the Kennedy floating in defense setup we have at the moment.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I think also the one that I do want to talk about and the one that is a master of his craft, I talked about him in my preview, Will Schnelling. Now, Will Schnelling is one of them really annoying players. If you watch him this weekend, he will have done his research on who's right-footed and who left-footed. They use him really to pressure and hurry teams up. And they are one of them players that I keep mentioning in my previews. People will say, oh, Jake Stringer will kill Carlton. Jake Stringer, Toby Green, don't worry me when we're playing like this because I feel like we can negate their goal scoring. What I don't feel like we can negate at the moment is when people pressure and hurry us up to make decisions. And that's something that Schnelling is going to do quite a lot. We saw it last week with Melbourne's forwards. They played one more defensive, trying to hurry Carlton to that decision. That's where we get ourselves into problems. It's going to be an interesting one with that combination because we've come up against this kind of one pure defensive forward, two crafty goal scorers like Langford who gets himself loose. This could be an interesting one because this is something that Carlton have struggled with this last couple of weeks, particularly.
Yeah, they got a few guys that can hit the scoreboard and historically do against us. There's Langford, there's Snelling. Mac Welfie's been good, particularly lately. He's actually been coming on as the sub and still able to impact and kick a couple of goals a game. And then they've got Nick Martin running around on a wing who pushes forward and kicks goals as well. So they've got quite a few avenues to goal, and they seem to get them. And maybe they've been forced to because Peter Wright hasn't been in the team. So maybe that changes a bit this week. But they've got quite a few non-traditional avenues to goal. So if we do focus too much on a Zach Merritt or a Jake Stringer or a Peter Wright, they have other avenues. Whereas this year we've shown that we really don't. If they can put enough work into one of Harry or Charlie, and we saw Melbourne do that to us last week, where Harry had kicked 4 goals, but Melbourne didn't really care because they knew that Harry on his own wasn't enough to win the game, and they were right. So I think there is some danger in their different avenues to goal, which is going to mean Jordan Boyd and Adam Sard and Brody Kemp and Alex Chincotta are all going to have to really perform well. And then Blake Acres and Sam Walsh, who's been named on the wing, are going to have to really come back and help in the defence at times. So they do have some dangerous forwards in their system, and at the moment we don't in ours, Pom. So for us to win this game, is it a Harry and Charlie kick 5 goals each, or is it someone, Jack Martin kicks 2 and Motlop kicks 1 and Cottrell kicks 1? What do you think?
The only thing I can think of to make a case for Ed Kerner is something that I've been saying in the last 2 weeks, right? Chera looks good because he gets himself free. At the moment, we're wasting Walsh as kind of Audi Cripps. And he's trying to break out. I'd love to see this week, if Ed Kerner plays 100% on the ball, Cripps rotates forward.
Yep.
Like he did last week. Because Cripps this time last year was on 15 goals. Right? This year he's on next to nothing. We're massively down there. Walsh needs to get free with Jera. They need to get the ball out. That's something that Hewitt and Cripps have really struggled with this year, especially last week's. Cripps trying to find Walsh and Chera out in the open was one of the worst efforts I've seen. That is what Carlton have got to do. Going back to that strength, that's a huge thing, and particularly how they rebound the ball. Last year, we saw some real success, and it's quite funny. I was actually chatting to an opposition coach this week, who we've played very recently. And it was quite funny because I've seen a lot of people say Sard was tagged. And his words to me were, we didn't really tag him. He was like, that's not something that we do. He was like, it was just, we asked the question, if you dared take it to him. So they set little traps to him. And I mentioned it a couple of weeks ago before I got this intel. They're really negating Sard by trying to ask out on that question. Do you dare? So I really hope to see Doherty and Sard in the back half of the ground to try and get that midfield involved. Because at the moment, the midfield are just working a defensive game plan. They're not getting a chance to transition. And I want to see us go. I want to see us. I don't expect a great performance. I'm going to be honest. I think the mentality and the poorness they've had the last couple of weeks is gonna be hard. It's going to be hard for them to play free flowing. But I do want to see them try and grind it out and find some form. And this is a great game because derby games are totally different.
Yeah, they are, which is why I think. And shout out to everyone in the comments, by the way. I think we've got the best group of commenters on the Blue Abroad channel, Pommy, because
they're all good.
A lot of insights, a lot of really smart. We don't get to shout everyone out. There's a lot of great insights that helps feed our conversation. But I just wanted to shout that out. I can't remember what I was going to talk about, but you're right that asking the question of us has been the downfall of us. So people are essentially they're actually, it's a lot. There's been a lot of mental game plans against us in that, like, if Sard wanted to have 30 touches a game, he could be having it. No one's paying any attention. Same with Doherty, but to be fair, we're throwing Doherty in the forward line of the midfield. But we're just not even willing to try it because it's just Wiedering, kicks long to the wing. We hope that Harry takes a mark. We hope that Harry turns around and kicks it to Charlie, and that's the game plan. So I'm with you. I hope we can sort of break through that mindset. There's nothing to lose. We need to probably kick more than 10 goals this week, Pom, to get a win, which we haven't done in quite a while. I don't know. I think we should win. I'm going to tip us just in a close match. I'm hoping our sort of spirit and heart gets us over. I'm hoping the home crowd gets involved. The thing that will potentially lose it for us is if they kick on early, Essendon, and we go really quiet in the crowd, I'll be there. I think that drains the energy more than opposition fans booing. I think silence is a real killer for us. So get there, be as loud as you can. I hope that we can do it and have something to cheer about. And I think we will win, but the question is on the players this week. It's just purely on the players to do it. It's up to them.
You know what? I agree. Chat, give me your predictions and give me your best on ground. I am going to say Jack Martin polls 3 votes in a 4-goal, 11-score involvement game. Blues by 26.
I like that a lot, Paul. I like that a lot. I'm going to say my prediction is the Sam Walsh move to the wing nets him 3 votes because he goes forward and kicks a couple of goals, a couple of really clutch defensive efforts and 30 disposals running up and down the ground. So I think it's a Sam Walsh best on ground game. I'm tipping the Blues, and I'm going to keep it a little bit closer. I'm going to say 13 points because I think we'll get ahead. I think we could be ahead by as far as 40, but I think we'll win by 13 points because that's generally how we play.
Do you know what I mean? Let's have a look. Well, the chat, I like it. 9. I like this one from my mate, Rich, Big Rich. Lewis Young, 30 disposals, 11. Hey, can you imagine? Are we slotting him forward, Richard? Are we slotting him forward?
To be honest with you, it seems like we're playing positionless. We're just throwing names in there and they can play anywhere. Sam Doherty, yeah, you're a forward now. Lewis Young, full forward. Why not?
Matthew Anderson. Tell you what, people getting upset that I've tipped us to win. Do you know what I mean? What do you want me to do?
It's a Carlton show on the Carlton channel.
Do you know what I mean? All due respect, my people back in the day would hang you during the war if you said the Nazis would win. You know what I mean? Like Jesus Christ, if you can't go in with a little bit of belief, you go into everything. I'll just deal with it if we lose. Do you know what I mean? I'll deal with it if we lose. But Jesus, I might as well dig a hole out the back.
Yeah, I'd rather come here, talk to you, and talk about the reasons why we could win, tip us by a couple of goals, and then lose, rather than come in and go, "Oh fuck, Pom, what's the point? Why are we doing the show? We're gonna lose. What's the point? This sucks. You know what? Turn the cameras off." Like, I appreciate that people don't think we're gonna win, but like, what are we here for?
Do you know what I mean? Good question. This. Do I like? I've got to say, Collingwood fans are nicer to me than Essendon fans. This one's personal because Essendon fans are completely fucking dickheads to me, and I can't stand them. So this is it. Let's everyone get together. Let's cheer hard. Let's hope to see Dow come on again, because my highlight of last week was the noise when Dow came on. That turned me on. I've got to say, that did turn me on. I did enjoy his first little handball received and heard the noise. It did put a smile on my face. But everyone stay safe, look after yourself, hug your wife, hug your kids. If you can't hug your wife and kids, hug someone else's. It's a lot more fun if you don't get caught. Much love. Enjoy your weekend. See you Sunday for the watch along.
Go Blues.
Go Blues.